to the Linux Gamecast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, Double Fine wants your vote to help decide what bug to squish next. An angry video game nerd 2 gets a day one Linux release, because apparently he's still a thing.
Curses! Foiled again! Well, Steam security, that is. And 0AD shows us what the best kind of hole is. The answer may surprise you.
Another developer thinks it's a good idea to lock a game to 30 FERPs. And of course, that's now the only thing that people talk about of the game. And the folks at Topware promise Two Worlds 2 will totally come to Linux at some point. Maybe when they update the engine.
I'm Vince Stone here at LGC Actual, switching the bits, doing this nightmare fuel, all on the Linux, joined every week by my buddy up north, our Canadian podcaster.
I'm excited. It's spring, but it's still snowing.
And all the way from space, Portugal.
Hello!
Pedro Montes, and together with Shadreal Dynamic, joining us live around 9:30 Eastern, we form that special bit that's known as Cocaine Voltron. Before we get started, we like to see what's going on in each other's life organs, because I'm really happy that AT&T has decided to charge me $30 more for the exact same service. That's right. After years of dodging bandwidth caps, I now have a 600 gigabyte cap. Well, I will in like 3 months. Yay. I'm really excited about that. What's up, Jordan?
Well, I mean, at least you don't have the 300 gigabyte cap that I have. No, coworker decided to have a baby this week, so I got stuck covering their stuff, and as Sven can attest, I was working a couple late nights. That's about it.
Well, for me, I finished Dark Souls, basically. That was the most eventful thing that happened this week. And when I started New Game Plus, my character was so stupidly powerful, I finished it in just about 5 hours. So, yeah, that was good.
well, welcome to 2012, Pedro. How's it going?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
2011.
Well, something that we can never finish in 5 hours is the horse.
Yeah, no, we're it's been, I don't know, something about JavaScript injection. It's our Steam updates.
All right, so hello, Space Australia. Yeah. The government finds that Valve misled gamers.
Space Australia had some quarrels with Valve's way of doing business. Well, basically everyone in the world would a sense of, well, a little bit of common sense has an issue with the way Valve does business. But yeah, they had some specific points that they weren't happy. Their Consumer Protection Association basically pointed out that people weren't entitled to refunds for the digitally downloaded games purchased via Steam, and that Valve had excluded statutory guarantees and or warranties that goods would be of acceptable quality, and Valve had restricted or modified statutory guarantees and or warranties of acceptable quality. You see that? Those last two, that's still an issue. Valve has basically let the Steam store run amok for the past couple of years, and this is yet more proof that it doesn't work.
So basically what you're saying is they had like some type of loophole that didn't let people get...
More or less, like... Because they weren't actually selling games or because you don't buy games anymore. You buy licenses to games.
You subscribe to the games.
Yeah, you subscribe to the games or whatever. We don't have to provide refunds and blah 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 blah. And part of it, I think, now is also they're going to start listing games in Australian dollars, which means that you poor suckers in Australia get to pay the increased Australian price with the digital media tax, just because they love to give it to you right up the pooper. It's good times. Yep. But you know, speaking of poop, you may have noticed that there was a little something of a game released recently called Watching Paint Dry Simulator. And you might wonder, Valve has some degree of quality control, right?
No.
How did this get... Oh,
funny man.
Bear with me.
Okay. Keep going.
All right. So this guy Ruby goes into detail about how he managed to get this on the Steam store, and lo and behold, they have a bunch of non-sanitized JavaScript stuff that you can just fuck with Firebug. And if you screw around enough, you can basically get anything approved and on the store. Now, I mean, we've talked about Valve and their security they've typically been focused more on the user end about like people getting scammed with buying and trading items on the Steam marketplace, right? But there isn't really much in the way of, you know, stopping this kind of stuff of people injecting people put a store listing in place. What's to stop them from injecting JavaScript code that's malicious or what have you? And we talked about this article last year about how Valve has made some improvements with security, but they've still not put like a bug bounty program in place, which they absolutely need to do. Facebook has one, Google has one, Microsoft has one, hell, fucking Yahoo has one. Because if you don't incentivize people who find vulnerabilities to disclose it to you in a responsible manner, they're going to take that and profit off it in a non-legitimate way.
Yep.
Yeah, man. I was definitely looking at that, and I was like, Ars Technica even did a follow-up with this guy. Turns out he's 16 years old. I mean, he's in university, so he's got some smarts, and he's been doing penetration testing since he was 11. And he was a little frustrated at Valve because he has been trying. He's like, guys, this is a thing, and they never responded until he did it and published how he did it. And they're like, oh, now we're going to fix it. And he's like, yeah, there's still a ton of stuff on there that I could tell you about, but I'm not going to bother for the reasons that Jordan said. Where is my incentive to do this? P-Man?
Yeah, you may remember last year, the guy from Euro Truck Simulator 2 / American Truck Simulator, Thomas Duda, he was banned from Steam because he exploited a bug in order to get Valve to actually get off their ass and fix it. But I was kind of expecting that the moment he heard about this, he would just go apeshit on Twitter. But no, he only sent out a couple of sarcastic tweets, so I was disappointed.
Moral of the story is we're constantly on the brink of societal collapse via hackers doing malicious shit, and we're just barely staying ahead of them. Barely. But it's time to take it back to the past and play those shitty games.
Back to the future. Angry Video Game Nerd 2. Ass Emulation. Oh, I see what you funny guys. Angry Video Game Nerd.
Ass Emulation is a show title for sure.
To put the ass in Ass Emulation. Utilize new mechanics, power-ups. Okay, is this anything other than a bog standard hipster pixel? I mean, it doesn't look bad. I'm looking at that picture right there. If we're playing the audio game at home. Yeah, I mean, it looks all right. It looks properly well done, and to be $14.99.
It looks like a Mega Man clone.
Yeah, it's a thing. Let's see, system requirements. Everything looks legitimate. I didn't know. I mean, not that I have anything against the lad. That Angry Video Game Nerd was still around. I remember, but before the YouTubes was owned by the Googs, like watching some of his videos back in 4x3. He's been around for some time.
Oh yeah, back when he was the angry Nintendo nerd, but he's still kicking around. I think he stopped doing AVGN stuff and is off like doing other stuff. He has that company, Cinemassacre. Strider mentioned it in Chat Realm. You can check out their YouTube channel, but yeah, he's still kicking around. What I want to know is where's the Nostalgia Critic video game? God damn it, he was gonna review The Wizard first.
A bit of a spoiler. Apparently, the Nostalgia Critic is in this game. So
right, but I don't know that he's a boss in the game. I don't want to say that's a game about him. But anyways.
Yeah. Well, he is in there. Well, while we're on the hipster pixel bandwagon,
it's get drifty.
It's the Hyperlight Drifter or hipster pixel drifter. You might want to call him because that's what it is.
Show him what's on the back of your chair.
Drift. Of course, I don't move at hyperlight speed, so yeah, take of that what you will. But yeah, this is Hyperlight Drifter, and they describe it as a easy to pick up, difficult to master. Enemies are vicious and numerous. Hazards will easily crush your frail body, and friendly faces remain rare. See, now I can recognize marketing spiel for like Dark Souls, but and it's probably a good idea.
Sanctuary.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea that they released it at this time, and we're probably going to start seeing a hell of a lot more of these on the heels of Dark Souls 3. I just wish From Software released a Linux version of that. But yeah, the one big thing about this game is that they decided to lock the frame rate to 30 FPS. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, they also decided to tie the entire engine logic to the frame rate. So even if you get a teeny tiny dip, the game will slow down. It will literally slow down.
I don't know what like 286 computer you're attempting to run this on, but with the i7, I have not seen it. It's been constantly 30 frames a second. And I mean, are you really expecting...
For me, it dipped once in one specific place, and it was very, very noticeable because at that point you're going from 30 to 27 FERPs even, and you're going to see the difference. Now, the dev is aware of this, and they've made it pretty damn clear that this was a design decision. It wasn't an accident or anything. They specifically made it to be so. And people in their Steam forums are just going apeshit. There's a thread with like 400 and something replies about the frame rate.
And, speaking of intense graphical fidelity that will just bring your 90 to its knees.
I definitely want to think about it. I mean, I could actually see the logic behind tying it, the frame rate to any dips like that, because, back in the days, that's how it was, especially on the consoles.
Yeah. That is true, but what I wanted to mention though is that in with so much hipster pixel shit going on, it's good to see that someone is actually making good looking pixel art and making games with it. Because if you're gonna do it, at least do it like these guys and make it look cool. Do what Super Brothers did. Use the limitation as inspiration to do more with the format.
And I guess we need to go ahead and just say full disclosure: everything we said was completely invalidated because the developers all sent us some keys. So.
Yeah, it's a lot bought and paid for, completely bought and paid for. But I mean, to their credit, it did figure out I was using a PlayStation 4 controller and gave me the correct button prompts. But apparently, with the
I was extremely happy. It figured out that I was using an XClone 360 controller and gave me the PlayStation button prompts.
That's awesome.
And it figured out that I was using the NVIDIA Shield controller, and it showed up the PS4 prompts.
It's good stuff. It's high quality program from these guys. But it's time to get dark. I've been waiting for this for fucking ever. And I apologize because I've previously stated before that this is a Unity game because I remember reading that this was a Unity game. Apparently it's built on an entirely custom engine. But Darkest Dungeon finally has a Linux beta version. What is this? It's a dungeon crawler roguelike where your guys slowly but surely go insane and just you lose control, and it has a wonderful Lovecraftian aesthetic. I love dungeon crawlers, and I've just been waiting for this to get a Linux version, but it's $30, man. It needs to come down in price just a little bit.
Well, it's currently kicking at 24.99 wet stinky caches. I got about as far as I go
in American money.
Right. Capitalist filth dollars. But I got as far as turn base, and I was just like, nope. Pedro.
Well, I did send him an email. I'm still waiting on the reply. We haven't heard anything from them since. But yeah, it took him long enough, and I too have been looking forward to this one because it's...
Send him some dick pics, Pedro.
No. But this game is basically your standard D&D campaign where you have a party, and they all go explore a dungeon, but instead of being all fun and games and the random death, no. They actually hit you over the head with like atmosphere on, hey, it's dark here. So there's this one guy that he's afraid of the dark, so he's gonna go ape shit, and he's going to develop a negative character trait.
That's called Call of Cthulhu. That's the exact mechanic from the sanity mechanic from Call of Cthulhu. But anyways, it's time to get ready to enter the digital world.
But it's VR ready to set underground, that great game, which is ridiculously overpriced. It kind of went on sale for $1. Nah, man. Hey, man, we got the VR. You got the Oculus Rifts. You're like, yeah, I get the HTC Vives. It's like, oh, yeah, you got Linux. And it's like, yeah. It's like, too bad, because it doesn't work yet. But, no, they've done a couple of VR enhancements. A couple of upgrades. Basically, since we don't have the VRs and all that, it's kind of a moot point until we do. They did add a new level, which, hey, new level. Fugly as hell new level, but, it's definitely a thing. Pedro, you said something about the controls there, right? Yeah,
they one of the points that they bring up is that Linux appears to not be detecting joysticks in many cases. That is exactly how I know you're not using SDL2, which...
Well, they're using Unreal 4, right? Which should have SDL2.
They're using Unreal Engine 4, which they could have used SDL2 right from the get-go, but apparently they didn't.
Yeah,
apparently just having constant controller support is
this game. It's a very interesting game because I think this game spends more time authenticating itself and making sure you're not one of those big nasty pirates or something like that than it does actually launching, which is always interesting. The bots do kind of work now, which is fun, but there's still you got a solid 9% chance of all the bots just being static until you shoot at them. It's a little bit boring. Price tag's still kind of steep for something that's early access, 29.99 wet stickies, but there's really no campaign at all. This is a glorified deathmatch simulator in 6 degrees of freedom. So use that as your buying advice. But before we get into
Viking
this,
Season 4 is out then.
No. It has no business being on the History Channel. But yes, we're going to talk about Vikings. But something I noticed this week, this is one of several games that came out with a downloadable demo.
Ooh.
And then I was like, $14.99, taking a look at this, and I was like, ooh, this looks a little rough around the edges, Brad. So I downloaded the demo, and I was like, ooh, this is a little rough around the edges, Brad. Pretty rough. I suggest, I think it's good that we're seeing more demos because I know they're going to be a genuine pain in the ass to go back and make this. But if we're going to talk about this, Trial by Viking is a deep single, no, it's not, platform and Metrovania-like, so it's going to be shit when you use that word.
It looks like Symphony of the It looks like Symphony of the Night, almost.
Well, you said in the news, it was like, it looks like a PS1 game, and I was like, aren't we in a generous mood? And seriously, what the hell you got against PS1 to slap it like that, man?
No, fair enough.
P-Man.
Wasn't there another game already on Steam that did these graphics would fully render the 3D models in a 2D environment that just ends up looking like arse?
Saturday morning breakfast cartoon or whatever the fuck that was called?
No. That was 2D sprites with different levels of depth. That just caused my brain to go, 3D nope, we're having none of that.
The biggest thing with this game is the control, if you're using it with a controller, and kind of like the lack of, because it definitely gives you a sense that you're not holding a controller, you're holding a suggestion stick. I mean, it's kind of all over the place and laughably bad. Sometimes it's input almost a full second, then it'll take off when it's not just flipping out randomly. That was also very interesting. Try the demo, that's priced to sell it free, and don't worry, because after you try the demo, you will never want to buy the game.
Good stuff. Coming up next, we talk about some driver regressions, and Unreal gives you the eyes.
Crazy eyes.
Crazy eyes.
This would usually be the news segment, but someone decided to throw in some monies our way. Well, a bunch of you did. 75 of you. Just kind of awesome.
Two new people this week, you ignorant slut. But yes, if you go to linuxgamecast.com/support the shows or patreon.com/linuxgamecast, you have many, many avenues of giving us money. On the Linux Gamecast side, we got the Amazon affiliate link, which you should just use if you buy stuff on Amazon, because it supports us, doesn't cost you a damn thing. It's win-win, except Amazon loses because they have to pay us. But it's great because we use EC2 instances to host the podcast, so they make that money back anyways. We also got some PayPal buttons for some one-time donations. And of course, if you want to kick us a recurring donation, head on over to Patreon. We have a brand new video for you. Ben and I struggled through another couple Portal levels and just watch as I lose my sanity trying to instruct Ben to perform simple tasks that apparently aren't that simple. We got some new donors this week as well. Random ASCII, aka Gingy in Chat Realm, and Matthew C, aka I don't know if he's in Chat Realm, but he's kicking us some money. They're kicking us some money. It's good stuff. And if you can't afford to, give us anything, just spread the word. Go outside. Go to your local preschool. Scream at them to watch Linux Gamecast. And then when the cops show up, scream at them to watch Linux Gamecast. And then when you're dead, well, you can't really donate money, so maybe don't do that. But news.
Hang on. There's one thing, all the beautiful party people that are helping us out to finance this nightmare train. We were able to deliver something that we promised, and that's a little show that Pedro and I do called Linux Weekly Day Wednesday.
That's right.
And we had a very special guest this week.
I made this big promise. I was like, you know what, Pedro? I made the promise to the Patreons. I was like, if we get this off the ground, I'm going to bring in the Linux gaming industry, and we're going to have a chat. We delivered.
And did he chat? Did he chat?
we got on Ryan C. Gordon. You might know him as Iculus, and he even admits some things about our favorite racing game that's still not yet on Linux, called Rocket League. So, yeah.
Not on the show, though, but,
Yeah.
it gets brought up. But, speaking of bugs, Pedro.
Yes, to start off with the news this week, we are deviating a little bit from the usual. It's not exactly the drivers, but the bugs that came with the GLVND default drivers from NVIDIA. Yeah, if you were trying to play, say, Shadow of Mordor, there would be a teeny tiny issue with some of the textures simply not rendering. You would be left with an invisible Talion just running around, and some bits of the ground wouldn't even render either. Now, Feral is aware of this, and they've actually said that they were going to release a small patch to address this issue. In the meantime, if you have an AMD CPU, you can keep on twiddling those thumbs because they don't seem to want to address the CPU bottleneck.
As I said before, shady NVIDIA hacks just completely go out the window with this new GLNVD thing because they want to be vendor neutral to give AMD just a little bit of a chance. Not really, no. They don't.
I mean, I definitely think it's good on Feral. Feral's like, okay, all right, woo, didn't see that. And it's kind of game breaking with like your invisibility cloak, which doesn't render properly, which makes you not invisible, so you get killed to death. Yeah. Small thing, but it's being worked on. But can you count to 11?
That's like 1, 2, 6, purple, 99,
blue.
Yeah, no, Unreal 411 is out, and we're gonna give you the 411 on it. That's clever, right? No, they've some of the highlights include improved multi-threading support. So if those of you with 8150s may get a slight performance boost in Arc soon enough. But Ven, you brought up a very valid point about the real reason behind the improved multi-core support.
Well, that was my first thought. I mean, they definitely brought that. I was like, performance and multi-threading. We're on this. We're, going to help out with that. And I was like, why is that such a big I was like, oh, right, consoles, because they both the Xbox One and the PS4 are running Jaguar.
8 cores,
parts.
AP.
Right. So, jug. And, yeah, good. You're not helping the case here because, especially with running the Vulcans lately with the Talos and all that. And I was like, man, I might be able to get another 2 years out of this processor before I have to go and discover Zen. Pedro, do you get any thoughts here?
Yeah, you actually mentioned in the notes that crash reporting on Linux is now a thing. It took them a little while to get to that. I mean, what was the holdup?
I thought you were telling me the whole time. But whatever. Yeah, Ben, you also made a really big notice, and this is really huge, is that 92 of the fixes available in this version were submitted by the community, which is fantastic because it saves them a ton of money and effort on bug fixing. And, being open source, people will find issues and improvements.
Nope. Don't you dare say it's open source, or people will write very strongly worded hate mail.
Bring it on, Muffin! No, but digging a little deeper into the release notes, and I love when Unreal releases a new version because I spent like 2 hours trying to grok the entire article and my eyes just roll into the back of my head. But one of the things I took away before passing out was it looks like the Hairworks integration is now prime time because they've added better hair texture support. And they added realistic eye shading too. And along with the myriad of other VR improvements, I'm legitimately looking forward to the VR game that is literally just you having a needle shoved in your eye. It's going to be fantastic.
Electronic Arts is going to bring Dead Space to VR soon enough.
No, man. I mean, it'll be a Wayne's World, red hot poker eye cam, slide it right.
That's true. But speaking of bug fixes, then Double Fine has an interesting little...
Double Fine wants your vote. This is our support portal. Not ours, but theirs at the moment. They're only collecting bugs for Day of the Tentacle. Yeah, man. What you can do is you can come in here, chill out, have a cocktail, and vote on which bugs they should fix. Now, as I just said, it's only for Day of the Tentacle, and they rejected my bug that, where's the Linux version? Why doesn't it have a Linux version yet? Probably not a good one. But, Jordan, is this a good idea? Is this a good way to go about squishing bugs, or could the system possibly get gamed?
Absolutely. If you give people the means to report bugs, they generally will, because people want their games that they spend money on to work. And I mean, Valve has been using GitHub as a bug tracker for all their various products for at least a couple of years now. So again, making that available creates visibility, and it creates faith in your company that they're actually doing shit, as opposed to maybe pulling a Two Worlds, we'll talk about that, or not Two Worlds, Topware, and, you know, fixing it a little bit at a time and releasing it as an entirely new game. But, you know.
Yeah, the only thing that really caught my eye with this was that they're using the Oxygen icon theme. I used KDE for long enough to recognize that anywhere. And this is also very similarly laid out to as Launchpad, the Ubuntu bug tracker. So if you ever reported a Ubuntu bug, you'll be right at home. But yeah, let's get on to Jordan already mentioned the Topware bits, and they had a bit of a Facebook post saying that, hey, we're going to be updating the Two Worlds 2 engine, and that will bring SteamOS support to the game, and a little bit of an expansion pack that they're calling the Call of the Tenebrae. I'm guessing that's how you spell it. But yeah, the Two Worlds 2, if you don't know, there was one of the... it was the sequel to the original shitty Oblivion ripoff that was Two Worlds. Now, Two Worlds 2, Manchester United 3, was very clearly a sign that they didn't expect to release a sequel, and thus the naming scheme got a bit fucked. The biggest thing that I can point out about the Two Worlds games, both of them, is the enthralling verbal diarrhea that composes most of that game's dialogue. There will be some links in the show notes that you can click on, and
it's almost as bad as listening to Pedro on LinuxGameCast.
I like to think I'm a bit more competent than that.
You're really not, but I know what you all are thinking. Aren't this is Reality Pump, right? These are the same guys who tried and failed to sell Raven's Cry twice. But you know, if they actually have done the work and, you know, designed their engine to be cross-platform, or at least added cross-platform support, this might be something worth playing. But really, the moral of the story is you got to pick up a 780, man, because your parts are good, but they're just configured.
Yeah, I mean,
they're in the wrong configuration.
I mean, you know, maybe this will be like a Two Worlds, the Vendetta. Yeah.
It's just Raven's Cry. Oh, they literally just resell Raven's Cry as Two Worlds 3.
Oh, no, that's what they'll do. They'll just reskin Raven's Cry.
No. That's the thing. Raven's Cry is a reskin Two Worlds 2. Make no mistake.
Well, make of that what you will. But you know what the best type of hole is? That's not what you think. It's a murder hole. Because Zero AD, which incidentally has a name with a hole in it, has released a new version. This is Timosthenes, version Alpha 20, I believe it is. They added a couple new maps. They've improved some AI stuff. They've added the ability to loot stuff from your fallen foes, so you can finally fulfill everyone's dream of visiting exotic new lands, meeting interesting new people, killing them, and taking their stuff. And was there anything else? Oh yeah, and they finally have a credit screen. You know, our long national nightmare is over. You can finally figure out who. Yeah, there's one guy right there. Woo! But now you don't have to go and check the git commit log to figure out who actually worked on the game. And I think that about wraps up the news segment, unless any of you have anything to add about Zero AD.
One thing I kind of wish they would just do like a standalone binary for this, as opposed to with a Ubuntu. They're like, well, it's in the PPA, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to go through all that trouble. I was like, well, build it from source. And I was like, I'm too old to do that. But yeah, neat piece of kit. I mean, it's still in development, as it's always still in development. I remember playing this when it was barely just a screen simulator, but yeah, excellent progress.
Mm-hmm, indeed. And, you know, it's government funded, open source, it's a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. They put out good work, and they show that you can actually make a good looking open source game that is actually open source proper and not open source Unreal Engine 4 open source. whatever. I
Open source.
lost my train of thought there.
Source.
Coming up next, we break some frames. Oh God, I screwed that up. Whatever. Flamebreak, CHAIRQUISITION. Next. All right, well, I'm done screwing up my speech. Or am I? Let's find out. We're throwing chairs at Flamebreak. It's from Nimbly Games, built on a custom engine built off of libgdx, a library for Ven's favorite programming language, Java. No, I'm kidding. His favorite programming language is COBOL, obviously. It's priced at $9.99 or $10.99 Canadian. If you want to pay the Canada tax. And what is it? Flamebreak is a roguelike action RPG featuring a unique blend of twin stick meets MOBA arena combat. Each procedurally generated run presents new challenges, while your hero's race is randomized, your weapons and blah blah blah, inspiring new playstyles and character builds. And they did send us some keys. This was like 2 weeks ago, so we checked it out and we decided nothing came out this week, so we're gonna throw some chairs at it. So let's kick off the CHAIRQUISITION. 1 chair means that it's garbage, 2 chairs means that it's meh, 3 chairs means that it's pretty good, and 4 chairs means that it's awesome. It's Team Porn Star good. And we also got our categories to do, mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So let's kick this off. Ven, did Flamebreak break your box?
Giggity. How did Flamebreak work? Well, on the octa-core 8150 with a 980 displayed at the 4Ks, well, technically UHD, ran pretty well. I mean, you do have the option to select your targeted FERPs, and I was like, all of them, 300. It did just fine at that at 1080, and at UHD at 2160. Did the same thing. Good on that. However, at UHD, it's got almost over half a second of cursor lag. And we'll talk about why that's important and also why it made it completely unplayable at 2160 later on. So there is one other small issue. It's not working with Steam Overlay. Like, seriously, in 2016. Really? I didn't expect that. That was kind of a give me. So, bam! You're going to get dinged a chair, and I'm going to give it 3 because it works, and it works pretty good. But, I don't like playing at like 1080p. That's such a peasant resolution.
Now, conversely, on Team Blue Land with the i7-6700K and the GTX 980.
Team Red for the win.
Yeah, bunch of communists is what. No, but no issues at UHD for me. I'll get to the control issues in that segment, but Steam Overlay worked fine. In fact, I had to alt tab out of there multiple times to switch Stargate episodes in Plex, because that's what was my background as we're playing through this. But yeah, no, Steam Overlay had no issues on my box whatsoever running Fedora 2264-bit. There, I got that all. 4 chairs.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with the Steam Overlay either. Maybe that's a Fedora thing, since I'm running Fedora 23 with the FX 8370E overclocked at 4.2 gigahertz and the GTX 970 Strix. Now, the game did one stupid thing, which is it went like, oh, you have one of those 3840 by 1080 screens that don't exist? Let me spawn the window smack in the middle of it. So yeah, I had a window in the middle of the 2 monitors with a big ass bezel in the middle. But yeah, I couldn't really find an option. Yeah, they are bezel-less monitors, but it was still pretty damn glaring. I couldn't really find an option to make it stick to one screen, so it gets dinged a chair for that. 3 chairs.
Well, here in Separate X Session Master Race, we don't experience any of these problems. So that's 3 chairs mixed with the working. Up next is Shiny and the Sounds. Ven.
It's amazing. Not really. Here's the thing. You're going to start this game up, and it goes into full story mode. I mean, the intro, it's like kind of epic. It's got the voice reading, a little Middle Earth-ish, kind of like that. I mean, it's definitely some Lord of the Rings type shite. And that's kind of what you're expecting, because I went into this blind. I always like my first experience to be like, okay, if I don't know about the game, I just want it presented that way. But nope, no Lord of the Rings type graphics, nope, not at all, because you're basically immediately faced with just cutesy arse mobile graphics. It's like, hey, little Bob has wow, That's jarring. It's like two different teams. Like, they spend all their money like in between the level transitions, between the actual gameplay. However, they're well done cutesy arse mobile graphics, but again, fuck me if I was expecting that. But, you know, this is also from the studio that pumped out such graphical juggernauts as Bumbledore and Altitude. The sounds work. They do bring that Middle-earthy theme, like, okay, fantasy type setting and all that business, and nothing really to complain about on that. Not much in the way of any type of voice acting. There is, you know, just your over bit of dialogue if you manage to progress in the game. And I think that was done well enough. But not really dinging a chair because it's fugly. I'm dinging in a chair because the art style between what you think you're going to get versus what you're actually presented with are two different Moon universes. But I'm going to give it 3.
Yeah, I didn't actually watch the intro video, so I did not suffer that. I also saw the trailer of the game before I played it, so I knew what I was getting into. And I mean, I'm not really blown out of the water with the sprites. It's very much a mobile graphical type thing. And the background music is there. I mean, it all serves its purpose. It's all competently done. But I personally find this rather middle of the road, especially when we have much better looking games out there that offer similar experiences, i.e. like Forced, or the rest of them escape me, but still.
Victor Vran.
Yeah, Victor Vran even, for sure. So, I mean, given the company this sort of game keeps, I'm not really that impressed. I'll give it 2 cheers.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the bobblehead stylization that they went with. It makes it impossible for me to get immersed in a game when it looks like that. It doesn't, and all things considered, it doesn't really take much to get me immersed in a game. Usually a solid set of mechanics and cohesive graphics is all I ask for. Just, you know, Fallout 3, it's kind of like crack cocaine for me. The floaty arms and heads in this game are anything but cohesive. That's probably the reason I never got into the Rayman series. I did like the background music. It's nothing spectacular, but it's well done, and it conveys the setting better than those crappy bobbleheads. I did like the poetry light loading screen / cutscenes. I couldn't really tell if they were going for the simple 4-line or just an alternate style of rhymes, but they didn't force it too much. So it gets 3 cheers from me.
All right, so that's 2 cheers for Shiny and Sounds. Up next is the controls. Then, how is it to sit back on your couch and play this with the controller?
In the big picture mode. Well, you know what? Just go ahead and fuck off if you think you're going to play this thing with a controller. Just get that out of your brain organ, because keyboard and gerbil is a must. And unfortunately, that's only half the battle. The other half is not making it really clear that the hotkeys that you use for your specials can be reordered, because the place you want to put that is in the menu. Because, really? Okay.
Well, they do tell you that in the tutorial.
Oh, right. We always watch tutorials. Sorry, we don't. And one other thing I will say about just give it up. You're not going to play this with a controller. I mean, give this to your child or somebody else that you dislike and let them play it with a controller just to watch the frustration. Maybe that's a sound plan. But when you are using the controller, most of the menus that you have to deal with, it just simulates a gerbil. You're like, oh, control stick. And I was like, wow, that's just janky, and it comes across completely unpolished. I mean, you know, there's no actual menu selection. He's like, okay, let's drag this, you know, with the D-pad all the way up here, all the way down here, and we'll do that. And you get in the game, and there's no clear way to target. You know, it's like, oh, it's a twin stick. And I was like, twin stick my ass. Yeah, show title on that one. It's not broken, but it's not good. I'll give it a solid 3 cheers, but only if you're playing with a keyboard and a gerbil.
So I actually made it to about halfway through the second map. When we first got this game, I was playing with the PlayStation 4 controller here. It's glowing. Look at it. Ooh, it's fancy. But yeah, what I'd really like to do is be able to sit back on my couch and play this. But when you're trying to like rotate your guy to aim anything, it just doesn't work with the controller. You really, really, really need a keyboard and mouse. And I mean, I tried it with both last week, and it was really super sluggish. And it seems like they have fixed it this week. So beyond that, I mean, yeah, play this with the keyboard and mouse. They really, really do need some, improved controller support. And that's enough to ding it a chair, so it'll get 3.
Yeah, it recognized the NVIDIA Shield controller with the correct mappings, no less, which is something rare, all things considered. But chances are, like Ben and Jordan already mentioned, you're going to want to play this with a keyboard and mouse. And that, at least for me, worked fine. I didn't really have any issues, and there's really nothing I can point at. But that's probably because I didn't really enjoy the game, but I'm getting ahead of myself. 4 chairs for the controls.
All right, so that is 3 chairs for the controls. And we got a final category, fun. Ben, did you have fun?
Fun? You mean our subjective category where we each share our own different opinions and experiences?
No. There's an objective standard for what fun is and what it is not.
Oh, it's not like a metaphor for chainsaws. Okay, well.
It's a metaphor for your mother.
Excusing that, I actually put a real full Arn into this game, and that was a chore. That was a task. What allowed me to do that is I finally got kind of, luck of the draw, because you basically roll characters with different abilities. And I finally got a Minotaur, with a spear, and he had some range moves I liked, and everything was laid out. It's like, okay, we can get somewhere. I actually got 3 progressions in, 3 levels in, however you want to call it. Then he got dead, and I had to start over. Now, I want to quote this from the side is, why did I have to start over? Well, randomized heroes, race, weapons, and skills inspire new playstyles and character builds. No, sir, it did not. Not for me. It inspired me to stop playing this damn game after I'd hit my 60-minute mark on it. Because, you know what? Fuck permadeath and fuck procedurally, show title, procedurally generated anythings. And this is a permadeath, procedurally generated cocktail of nope. All right. Seriously, that's not necessarily the fault of the game, but it is their fault for mixing these 2 horrible elements together. And if you're like me and have just the slightest aversion to either of those popularly defined user tags on Steam, just stay away. Get away. And I'm just going to say in closing for this, quit. Because I see a lot of people doing it in the forum. Steam refunds, their thing. This doesn't hold water. Quit comparing this to Binding of Isaac. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even in the same universe. Stop. I mean, you're just making that up. I will never go back and play this. I did not have a fun time with it. It was definitely a chore. And I'm going to have a little bit of extra to throw in our closing notes to really let you know what I think about it. But since it's compared to some things we reviewed, this is a very highly functioning game that has actual mechanics and has game in it. So I can't give it 1 chair. Kind of wish we had a half chair, because I'd definitely give it a 1.5, but I'm going to give it 2 just because I'm feeling generous.
Fractions are for indecisive twats, Then.
And frogs.
And frog. Yes, and Frogger. I actually do like the randomized character a bit. It gives you sort of a variety of things to try out. And I mean, I played with a bunch of different guys just to vary things up. And I found that I was only really good with the musket or the crossbow, because the spear and the sword are just too slow. But yeah, if you pick a guy with at least 2 dash moves and a crossbow or the blunderbuss, you should be pretty good to go. I did pretty well with those. And I also like the Rogue Legacy type functionality where every time you beat a game, you get some experience. And as you gain experience and levels, you unlock more things. So even when you die, it's still not for naught. You accomplish something and there is some reward for it. So that's pretty nice. However, this is a shmup. I hate shmups. This is a relatively enjoyable, well done shmup, but it's a shmup nonetheless. It does a lot of things right. The mechanics are very well defined. The random encounters you get into are actually the same. The locations are just different. So if you're having trouble with 1 or 2 of them, you can keep repeating them until you actually get the hang of it, and are actually effectively able to like perfect or near perfect the stage, which is nice. It does actually have a learning curve, and there is some degree of mastery to it. But the thing that really gimps it, and this actually costs it a chair in the fun category, is it needs controller support. I want to play this on my couch. This would actually be kind of fun. I enjoyed it sort of kind of, but playing it with a keyboard and mouse is not really my dice, so I'm gonna have to give it 2 chairs.
Yeah, so going back a little bit to what Ben said, this is not The Binding of Isaac. The first thing that Nori said when she saw me playing this game was like, oh, that's kind of like Binding of Isaac. No, it's not. You see, The Binding of Isaac is a very well... they've basically nailed down the mechanics to the point... Well, they basically have it down to science. It's very well done, and all the shooting mechanics and everything else is very well implemented. This just feels like you're flailing around a feather duster hoping to hit something in the meantime. It's a roguelite single-player MOBA type of thing. One thing I did like about this game was the roguelike bits. The permadeath, the randomization, the difficulty, that I liked. What I didn't like was the cooldown-based MOBA-style combat. There was a game that I actually enjoyed that did that very well, which was called Necro, and it's not doing so well these days. Yeah. Part of that specific style of combat with the bobblehead aesthetics that I mentioned earlier, and you have yourself a 2-chair game.
All right, so if we're going to tally all that up, we get 2 chairs for the fun and 2 chairs for the total score, which is a not sure if want on the CHAIRQUISITION O-meter, O-tron, O-dice, O-whatever. Final thoughts, gents?
Well, I said I was going to try to put a bow on this because ultimately at the end of the day, with your lackady hairdo and your sparkly cowboy boots, what this game is, I mean, it almost seems like it was an attempt built from the ground up to entice Twitch streamers. Wait, is that a list of live Twitch streams on the start screen? Yes, it is, Brad. Yes, it is. And no one's really playing your game. The ultimate sad thing is I searched for a review for your game. It doesn't really exist. And
it does now.
The embarrassing thing is when this actually gets published as a review in our review section, it will be the first on the Gooks.
Yeah, I can sort of see the appeal, and pricing it at $10 was probably a very good decision. Now, this is the kind of game that I hate. It's not terrible, and it's not particularly good either.
Like, hey, let's make Hearthstone, kind of.
No. See, Hearthstone is very good. It basically boiled down the mechanics of Magic the Gathering to just the essentials, and it works. This game, on the other hand, is mediocre. It's a game that borrows mechanics from other much better games and does absolutely nothing spectacular with them, and it has the literal definition of a disjointed aesthetic, because, having floating arms and legs is fucking having a disjointed character.
Flash game.
I'm really torn on whether or not to recommend this game, because yes, it's cheap, but it's not very good.
God damn it, Empty! You take the money and you put it no. I mean, like, this game had bits that I liked, and it had bits that I didn't like. It is very much the definitive 2-chair game of it's sort of in the middle of the road. It could be better, and there's definitely some good game in here. It just needs to be brought out some more and have some goddamn controller support. So that about wraps up the CHAIRQUISITION for Flamebreak. More like lame break, am I right? Coming up next, we got Hate Mail. Sick burn. Oh yeah.
Well, would you look at that? It's hate mail time already. And you probably already know how to get in touch with us. It's easy. If you go to LinuxGameCast.com, you just push the contact button, you fill out the form. Unless, of course, you're trying to promote your game. At that point, if you don't send us some playable builds of your game or some Steam keys for your early access BS, well, chances are we're just going to make fun of you. Does that sound fair? No? Well, I don't care. Who do we have up this week? Mr. Wailing Fungus 04. He apparently
we
goes on a little... Yeah, he actually describes exactly how many issues he ran into while trying to install Prey on Linux, which does have a native Linux version. He has the 3 CD version. I've been drinking too much. And he had some issues because the installer wouldn't recognize when he actually changed the CDs to the next one. Eventually, he finally got around to getting it installed. He basically realized that if he submitted the Prey CD key to Steam, it would actually redeem the game, and he could just go on from there. Really? And one of the things that he asks is, who should he blame when it comes to having all of these issues?
It's obvious. You got to blame Canada.
Yeah, you could blame Aculus, but no, you can actually blame Bethesda/ZeniMax. They don't like Linux, and they've made it pretty clear that they have absolutely no intention of supporting it. That said, you could have gone to lutris.net/games/Prey, and it was basically a one-click install with the CDs, with the CD version. So
the link to that is totally not in our show notes because we didn't mention that earlier.
Totally
in our news segment.
Yeah. So what's up next?
Up next, we got the payday from Mr. Michel S. And he says, there was a pretty big controversy when the devs introduced microtransactions last year, especially when one of the devs said that they would never have microtransactions in 2013. From reading about the history of Payday 2 and how the devs have been selling it to their players, I personally think the devs are untrustworthy and do not deserve my $$. As one of the commenters have pointed out, the devs simply do not respect the community. Now, I've had a lot of fun playing the game during the free time in March, but I also didn't have fun with all the in-game advertising. I felt like games like these should be avoided due to the in-game advertising. Basically, a game developer that respects its customers does not push DLC inside the game at all. It's ideal for the game to not have any paid DLC like Nintendo Splatoons. Well, here's the thing: if you're a game maker and you want to promote your DLC, odds are you're probably going to make a little mention of it in the patch notes that pop up in the game. It's sort of unavoidable, and it's one of those tactics that you kind of need to engage in just to promote it. That being said, Payday 2 is really shameless when it comes to it.
Yeah. And
super shameless.
I sort of get it. It's a multiplayer game. They have to pay to keep all those servers running and everything else. I sort of get that they have to have some sort of continuous income stream in order to keep those servers running. But as much as I understand that, yeah, why are you advertising DLC? Like, the very first item that you see on the main menu is a fucking ad for DLC. And, to actually comment on the little bit of hate mail that we got here, I've had my disagreements with Mr. S here, but this time we're both on point.
See, my big I'll be quick. My big problem is that there's so much shit in all the menus that are just, this is available in the DLC, as opposed to, here's your inventory. Oh, and if you have DLC, you get a new page of shit. That would have made it a lot better.
Yeah, I'm going to share everything. I think I clearly stated when we were talking about fun, I said, this is fun if you're going to play it with your friends and you're not going to buy DLC. Once you have those two things together, Payday 2 has nothing on Company of Heroes 2 when it comes to DLC. All right, Pedro?
Or working for one.
Yeah.
All right. It's not like 75% of the main screen is just nothing but DLC advertisements. A lot of people went back and retro, because even your internet crush Jim Sterling, at the end of his Payday 2 rant, he was like, the game's still fun as hell. It's a good game, which it is. And if you're playing it like that with your friends, not with online randos, and you're not pumping into the DLC train, and its core mechanic, it's still a fun game, and it was still a very well done Linux port.
It is that much. I don't disagree. In fact, I actually pointed that out in our CHAIRQUISITION. But why are you advertising it so much? It's the very first item on the main menu. It's
Borderlands
right there.
2, Borderlands the pre-sequel, both right in your face. Buy DLC. I didn't hear you pissing and moaning
The
about
very
that.
first thing I saw when I started Payday 2 was an ad for DLC.
But if we want to put a bow
The first
on
thing you
this,
see when you launch Borderlands 2 is checking for DLC.
that's true. But but to put a bow on this, for an additional 99 cents, you can get LinuxGameCast Premium that adds another half hour onto the podcast. It's fantastic. And we're going to start including this at the beginning of every single episode.
Yeah, I mean, instead of the Snoop Vision, there's going to be a little Cocaine Voltron down there. It's gonna run at like 20x speed. It's going to be brilliant.
Cocaine Voltron Vision. It's just blood everywhere.
And on that bombshell, let's cue the music, because you can always find us around 9:30 Eastern Time, where we do this on Saturday nights with the help of Chat Dynamic joining us. I've been Vin Stone, cleverly disguised at Vin Stone on the Twitter nets, plus Vin Stone on the G+. If you want to scream in my face organ, I will try to scream back in yours.
I'm Jordan Svung. If you want to see me suffering from eye stigmata, you can follow me at The Burning Pool on Twitter, plus Jordan Svung on Google+.
Well, I do actually have astigmatism, but that's
You have eye
the point.
stigmata too, blood shoots out of there?
You can find me at Unaccounted For on Twitter, trying to remain relevant in some way or another, or plus Pedro Mateos on Google+, where I'm actually doing pretty good.
And you know what? I guess at the end of the day, the important thing is to realize, yes, DLC is a thing. What Payday 2 did, yeah, that was kind of a dick move, but, you know,
Kind of.
more importantly, just don't pre-order shit. How about that? Can we just agree on that?
No tucks, no fucks.
Yeah. No tucks, no bucks.
All right.
I said fucks. Fuck. Because fuck, Pedro. Wow, that's a 20-minute hate mail segment. 5 dudes.